Everyone has a story to tell. I don't want to hear yours next. Hello, everybody. Thanks for watching the podcast or listening to the podcast. Tell me your story. Today's special guest to tell her story from the very beginning is Miss Karen. What is your last name?
DeVaughn.
Karen DeVaughn. She's gonna.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do like how we always do. We're just gonna jump into this and start with like simple questions like where'd you grow up at? How many siblings did you have growing up?
Well,
Childhood.
born and raised. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just.
Let me start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I have let me think. Three brothers and 2 sisters. My middle sister has passed. She passed in 2012. Suddenly, it was a really impact on our family. You could see a lot go on my mother in terms of just like she was vacant. We finally got over it, but it was in 2012. She died in last year, 2021. So, Rust Belt, grew up in the 70s, 60s and 70s, where, EPA was non-existent. So we have a lot of factories, a lot of smog, not smog, but I had a problem with allergies, did not realize it till, sometimes later. When I went to school in Pennsylvania, I went to a rural school, Lincoln University. It was nothing but grass and trees. And that's when I realized, it was the smog and the factories. It was bothering my nose. It was terrible growing up in terms of how I felt. So that's when I learned.
Yeah, I get that from time to time around here. I don't really have like bad allergies, but
Mm-hmm.
when the weather changes, my wife gets it bad, I get it bad. It's just I don't really get it as bad as I used to though. I used to get really like clogged up and coughing. But
well, now I'm on allergy shots, so I'm doing okay.
did it work a lot better?
Oh yeah, fantastic. Because I got off of it because a lot of things happened this summer, and my schedule got turned around. I got turned around. I missed my supposedly once a month. So when I finally called in I guess October. She said, you haven't been here since August 8th. I said, okay. So I started the process all over again. Yeah. So, growing up and then going into a rural area where there's plenty of clean air and trees, I noticed the difference.
Definitely. Well, yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Like, how was that experience just going into like this whole new area?
Well, it was of course when you were a freshman, I rode the bus from Cleveland to Washington, D.C. because my uncle was going to drive me from Washington up to Lincoln University. And the first time I saw row houses was I went into Baltimore. I said, what is this? I never saw houses connected together.
Yeah.
Because in Ohio, no, we don't have no row houses. So it's the first time I saw that. I thought, wow, who are these poor people? Because all the houses were connected together. And then when I got off at the bus station in Washington, D.C., there were flying roaches. Man, I was like, wow. It was a totally different experience. And, going to, and then he drove me up, my uncle drove me up to Lincoln University, which is, it was really rural when I went there. Getting there, I have my 3 suitcases, that's all I had. I was a very poor family, and my mother told me, I can't afford to send you to college. We can't pay for it. I said, I know. So I just got scholarships and loans. And the thing is that my brother started us out thinking that that was a possibility, that we could go from high school to college and have a different kind of life. So there was a program that's still in existence called Cleveland Scholarship Program. So I got, scholarships from them, scholarships from my school at Lincoln, and that's, how I paid for it. It was a lot of money. Well, it was $3,500 at the time, which is not a lot today, but at then it's a lot of money. So I went there. I became it used to be all boys, and then it integrated with girls. And so I went there, got into politics, was the president of student government, the first female that was a president of student government. And we rallied and we did a lot of things.
Hold on, wait.
And
You said you were the first?
yeah, first, yeah.
Let's take a moment, everybody that's listening, watching. Give her a clap, man. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was
I
first.
mean, how did that feel, though, at least?
At the time when I was making history, I didn't know I was making history.
You were like,
I ran because I was the best candidate. I didn't have any opposition. No one ran against me. So first I was the vice president, then became the president. So, what I did was that, the first thing we did was that president of the university was Lincoln, or was, can't remember his name, but everyone has convocation, to begin to open up the school year. And a lot of things had not been done from the semester before. So we decided that, we wrote a manifesto, president said, "Oh, Karen, I love this. Where I was on the stage and I gave a speech. And then something came over me. I said, okay, I just raised my hand and said, let's go. So all the students leave out the chapel. Nobody in the chapel. So we didn't have a convocation that year. Man, he was pissed. So, we decided, and the students wanted to know where we're going to strike. And I thought about it and thought that, that wasn't the way to go, because some people, because of striking, people are not going to graduate, and back and forth. But that we were working for them to try to, make changes. So that's what I did, and wrote the pledge, which is now the pledge that students say when they join orientation, pledge to Lincoln and things like that. Then
really?
we had we had what we called, at the time, there was African liberation movements raging, and so that was our focus. And then we started an organization called Save and Change Black Schools, where we were trying to bring Black schools in the 20th century. At the time, I think we had 117 Black schools in the United States. It has decreased because funding has decreased, and relationship to the schools in the United States changed. We first, Lincoln University was the first institution. It was called Ashman Institute, and it was the first Black school in the United States. The money came from different sources, but the land was from a Black farmer named Samuel Crescent, and he donated the land to start the school. And a lot of people don't know that I stayed in the hall named after him called Crescent Hall. We had honorary degrees. It took 2 years, but the poli-sci department had Amilcar Cabral, who was the president of Guinea-Bissau, to come over, and we gave him an honorary degree. I was part of the security forces. I have a picture of that. And he went to New York and spoke to some, students, revolutionary leaders. Went back to Portugal, was assassinated. He was assassinated 1 month, and 2 months after he came to Lincoln University. So we were that involved in the student movement in Mozambique, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, South Africa, in terms of those movements.
Wait, wait. Did you say he was assassinated?
Yeah, Amilcar Cabral. Yeah.
And like you said, after a month of being in.
He came to Lincoln in November. I think he was in January. He was in New York with student leaders. He went back to Guinea-Bissau and he was immediately assassinated by the Portuguese.
Wow.
So we had that relationship, symbiotic relationship with those leaders. And then the last thing I did at Lincoln was to talk to close the school. We closed the school down because the school was, it was my proposal that the school was not functioning for the students, and that we had a 2-day all campus workshop trying to figure out, you know, why we weren't being educated like we wanted to be. And the point is if this was this historically black institution, should we not put more effort into educating the students in the manner in which they can go out and do what they wanted to do? So I get that done, then I graduate and went down to DC, did a whole lot of community organizing in DC, and then went back to school at Howard, worked on a graduate degree in public administration, labor relations. I worked with labor unions. So I did that. Then a couple of my friends, most of my close friends, had become doctors and were working on being doctors. One of my friends I had known for like 30 years, she had two clinics in Chicago, and they were called the Jared Luck medical centers, but they were floundering in terms of business wise. You can be a doctor, but you don't know how to run your business. So she was exhausted and asked me to come and move to Chicago to help her run her business. So I had finished, so I knew how to manage and run a business. So that's what I did, and became profitable in about 6 months. So, but we did not get along because I, you know, I had to make her understand that, you know, she'd gotten this grant from Health and Human Services, and she was not legally doing what she's supposed to do. And I was trying to get her to understand, look, you really can't do that. This is a federal government grant, and you cannot, you know, manipulate me.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's how we fell out. So I moved back down to Cleveland, and it was good because I didn't know my parents were very ill. I mean, I had all the 25 years or so of, you know, coming home and stuff like that. But, you know, when you're away and you're not living there, you don't know the day to day what's going on. So, go ahead.
I said I'm just agreeing with you. Just
Yeah,
that's the truth, man.
yeah.
We get so caught up in our own lives that we don't really like, because you used to live with your parents, so you know all the information. But after like getting involved into your own life and doing your own thing, you start losing track of that, and then you get the somewhat you hear about what's going on, but you don't know what actually is going on. That's all I'm
You're
saying.
right.
I'm just agreeing with you there.
So, you know, and my youngest brother, he wasn't born until I was 17 years old. And I remember he was born, and then got a scholarship to go and going into my senior year in high school. I got the scholarship to live in Belgium. You know, it was a funny story. It wasn't funny, but I had been studying French since the fourth grade, and you know, I learned a lot about in terms of you know, the language. And we began at a point where you finish the language and literature, you begin to study literature. So we had a French teacher that he had gotten directly from the Sorbonne in France, and she began to teach us about literature, African uh, writers and poets, and that's when I learned that there was a play called A Season in the Congo, but I read it in French, and in the seventh grade, and not till I got in college did I read it in English, and I understood much better what was going on. It was about the Milka Cabral and what was going on in the Congo, and the role that the United States played in murdering Patrice Lumumba. And I didn't really understand it then. I really understood it with the UN and Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the role the U.S. did play in the murder of Patrice Lumumba, and in the Congo, because the Congo was complete with jewels and minerals and people and the murdering. And it only came clear to me when I went to Lincoln and read it I took a course in Chilean poetry and drama, and I read it then, and I read other things. But anyway, Lincoln was opened my eyes to a number of things. People that, you know, we had great teachers, excellent library. So that's why I learned a lot. I learned, you know, in terms of took a course in diplomatic history, learned the role that the U.S. played in Pearl Harbor. A lot of historians don't want to talk about it, but oh yeah, my degree is in history. But the U.S. had known about the code that they were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. They knew it. I think it was November 21st. They broke the code. But Roosevelt, knowing the World War II, Roosevelt needed to get into World War II. I don't know if people know that there were 4 things that, acts that Roosevelt did. The United States was in an isolationist period. They'd come out of World War I. World War I on the psyche of American people was like, we're not doing this no more. Okay, so, U.S. had done that. They knew that Pearl Harbor was going to happen. So on December 7th, when it happened, they were not prepared, but Roosevelt knew that he had to have a tragic event in order the United States would not enter the war. And that's how he got into World War II.
It was like how you said, though, the important part was at the time we were like, yeah, we ain't having it. We ain't doing it. So being that, something tragic had to happen, I'm just saying, so, somebody doesn't understand fully. Because that happened, that opened you're like, yep, we got to go into this. It's kind of like, it's kind of going into something else that had happened not too long ago, if you think about it. We go back to 9/11. We knew something was coming, but I don't want to get too into that because I don't want to start stuff.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, they had an inkling of what's going on, but the point to me is that about 9/11, it was the Saudis that were the role they played, and they still sucking up to the Saudis. Okay, we are. They did 9/11. Nobody else. Come on, it wasn't Iraq. It wasn't Iran. It was the Saudis. But we didn't want to fight the Saudis because we need to do oil.
Yep.
So, history plays a very important role in our understanding of what's going on. Like, look at what's the war now? Not Ukraine. The same thing. It was called the Lend-Lease Act that Roosevelt created, allowed him to partially help Britain. Was the same Lend-Lease Act that Biden used to get support for Ukraine. So we understand what the situations that are going on, then we understand, what's going on. People don't understand, like, the problem with what Kyrie just did and what Kyrie Irving and Kanye West. They're not educated to understand who are the Semite people and what is anti-Semitic, and the mixture of the information and the mixture of the concept of Hebrews versus the concept of what we now call Jews. They're not the same people, okay? But over history, we think that they are, but in actuality, they're not. Because when we start talking about that, we can start talking about the Christian myth, and people will, oh, wait a minute, we're going to talk about Christianity. Oh, no, we'll talk about that. Wait a minute. And then, people don't understand really. I mean, when you want to talk about that, you want to talk about King James Version of the Bible and the road.
See, we start talking about the truth, and that's when they cut us off. That's how it always goes, man. They cut us off.
And just really laying out the value of understanding history, and people shy away from it in school, but they really need to take some time to understand it. In the current climate of banning books or anti history, I mean, really feeds into white supremacy. And I think that white supremacy, we kind of look at it, we don't connect it to like the Monroe Doctrine. We learn about the Monroe Doctrine in school, but we really didn't understand what it was. It was saying that we have the ability to expand and take away things from other people. And I heard Governor Santos of Florida talking about anti-critical race theory when he said America was not founded on stolen land. I'm like, what world are you living in? Who was here when everybody came over here?
Uh-huh.
Were there not native people? I mean, it was a lush country. I took a course in Ohio history, or described Ohio at the time before George Washington came over the Allegheny Mountains. Because if you understand, remember, the settlement of the United States was crushed because the Native Americans were kept beating George Washington. And once he came over the Allegheny Mountains, he opened up Ohio, and that began the rush across this country. But prior to that, I mean, what did Sanchez talking about? What is he talking? What were people fighting about? What was it like? Florida? Florida was like, wow, that place was wow. I mean, what was going on? There were Maroons, there were colonies, there were French and the Native Americans, some Spanish, all fighting. Everybody had that. It was a wild place. There was no laws or civilization or nothing. Everybody was doing their own thing. Just like Louisiana was the same uh, place. And we try to teach children in history, this phony, manifest destiny. We just here to just, do what we want to do. And we can, that allows children to think that, like today, uh, you know, everything is, we can do what we want to do. The concept that people are talking about in terms of, minimal government and low taxes. It's like the concept that, we're here, people are here, and we want to be free to, exploit the land, exploit the resources for our own personal good, as opposed to this land and the bounty of people that belong here, that are here. And the purposes of the resources is not just for your own personal party, it's for people that are living here. So this whole question about where we are and what we live, why we live here, it's intertwined with the discovery and the manifestations of what was going on in the United States. I mean, it's a very complicated story. It's not like what we teach in school for children. I mean, of course, in the younger grades, they can't. Well, I don't know if they can absorb complicated concepts, but to say that we should not, and this should not be something that we need to discuss as people, is idiocy, because it's reflecting of what's going on right now. It's
Yep.
determining policy what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why are people coming to this country? Why is the fight against immigration, especially in the southern border? Oh, by the way, the guy that fought Pelosi, that tried to kill Pelosi,
Yeah.
he was he had no business being in this country. And he's from Canada. Just want to say he's not from the southern part. Anyway, you know, people don't understand that the countries in South America and Latin America, I don't know why they call it Latin, anyway, that's another subject. I mean, they were living in the United States, what we call New Mexico, Arizona, California, Texas. They were living. This is where they land. So we pushed them out, and now they're coming back, and everybody's crying. Oh, no, keep them out, keep them out. I'm sure they said, "Hey, this was our spot first. What are y'all talking about? We came
Exactly.
over here. Now you trying to push me out?" So people don't understand that. And their discussion of, I remember in the 1980s, immigration was a big thing. Two senators, you know, blatantly said what the purpose was: to stop immigration. We're trying to prevent the browning of America.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they were talking about. And people don't understand. That's what they're talking about. Okay, just let's get clear. This is what they're talking about. People are pushing up from the economic conditions, and this is historically the land that was already here. Americans are pushing. America's pushed forward. through various racist ideas and push people out. So this is the push and pull of immigration, has a historical background, and we need to understand, what that was, why that was. So that's why I think history is important. Anyway, I was just going on various thoughts.
Hey man,
Anyway,
you got it out there. You had to.
so do you have any questions?
Anyways, yeah. Kind of will dig back into your story a little bit. So
Okay.
after you graduated, where'd you head off into? Your
I headed to Washington D.C. I went to Washington D.C. to, where's the picture now? What did I do? To organize. And can you see me or what's happening?
I can't see nothing.
Oh man, I'm so tired of this. Now this is getting on my nerve.
I can't even see myself right now.
Ah, you
There's
can't
so
see
much.
yourself.
No, I can't even see myself over here.
Oh my goodness.
But
What is this connection?
I'm just going with it now. Just the audio going.
So anyway, um, then I went and I did a lot of organizing. A lot was with African liberation. Then there was issues in Washington D.C., especially around the African Senate movement in education. What should we do in reference to that? Uh, in terms of exploring DC public schools and integrating that concept into DC public schools. So I met with people and administrators, and we decided how that was going to go because that was a big push, and that got done. And then uh, AIDS came to the United States. So in DC,
Hold on, wait. I want to cover that topic real quick because see, I grew up, and a lot of people have never actually gave like the accurate like where it actually came from, how
mm-hmm,
AIDS came to start. So many people
mm-hmm.
would say it was because we were experimenting on monkeys and doing stuff, weird stuff. But okay, I want to hear it from you. Where did it all start? Where did it come from? AIDS. How did it become like as big as it got in the 80s? How did it start?
Okay, part of the problem was that the situation did jump from animal to human because people ate monkey meat. Okay, people ate, that was the food that they ate. How is it that in the United States and the Western countries, AIDS is a different formulation in terms of mainly affecting homosexual population? Like in Africa, it's heterosexual population. The Washington Post did a long story about the role of prostitution and sex between uh, men, traveling up and down the continent, how that became a part of the process. The the formula for HIV in Africa has a different, it's one that's HTTV. In United States, it has, I think, three T's. The concept and the argument between France said they were the first ones to discover it. United States said they were the first. There was a big argument, and the guy that's the head of uh, CDC, what was his name? The one that's the big, the guy that was head of did the AIDS, I mean, excuse me, the COVID um, discussion in the United States. The guy that, what was his name again? Uh, he just retired.
Oh,
Uh,
he was going through it about uh, Doctor. What's his name?
I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was involved in a big lawsuit with France. France said that he stole the HIV formulation, their research, and said he discovered the cure for it. I mean, discovered AIDS. He said, no, I didn't. Anyway, they went to court. He lost. It was determined that France discovered the formulation for HIV, not the United States. So he suffered. He went to obscurity till COVID came around, and he was back again. Um, at the time, there was a doctor in United States, in Africa, named Dr. Davy Koich, Keoich. Dr. Koich in WLIB in New York, and Dr. Barbara Justice and Dr. Francis Cress-Welsing discovered that there could be a way in which AIDS could be cured. So I gave a big 2-day seminar in Washington, D.C. called Genocide, the AIDS Dilemma. Had Zeers Miles, Robert Strucker, Francis Cress-Welsing, Dr. Barbara Justice. So we had a 2-day seminar on whether or not AIDS was killing the African American community, which it was. The big problem was that ACT UP, which is a group that the homosexual activists formed to get the United States to pay attention to the AIDS situation, was overshadowing what actually was happening. Dr. Davy Koich had a couple of patients that he had turned from HIV positive to HIV negative. He started getting out on radio station WLIB, like I said, in New York. So I brought them down and we had a big 2-day conference on the concept of trying to make people, can you make people positive, the positive to negative? The drug companies in the United States wanted the drug. They wanted the, of course, it was capitalism. So they froze out Dr. Davy Koich, okay? Something similar was happening in Cuba, was in which the homosexual population in the United States was against, was that they isolated the HIV patients in Cuba, okay? The problem was in the United States that they were arguing against isolation, and the population freely moved among everyone else, which greatly allowed the virus to spread. People were saying the homosexual population, people were saying, no, isolation, you're making us feel bad, different. Well, you had AIDS, okay? So what happened in Cuba, people don't really understand. They attribute to, the communists, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, right. However, they were able to minimize the impact of AIDS in their community because they started with the isolation process. On the African continent, we had ability to change from positive to negative with Dr. David Koich, but he was inundated and with his work, he was not the drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, and the guy that heads had the I can't remember the headed COVID-19 for us, were battling him for the drugs. So Dr. David Koich was trying to cure people, and they was just trying to, United States pharmaceutical companies trying to make drugs so that they could treat people. So they would make more money treating people as opposed to people being cured. So Koich was drowned out and not able to get his support. Pharmaceutical companies in the United States, and I got to remember this doctor. I'll remember at 12 o'clock at night. His name, the guy that headed COVID for the United States, it was the White House. I can't remember. He's just decided to retire. I cannot remember his name. Anyway, he and the pharmaceutical companies battled Davy Koich because they wanted to be prominent in terms of making treatment as opposed to curing. You don't make money curing people. You make money treating people. And so that's what happened with the AIDS in the United States. Did AIDS come? It is transmitted via in the United States. The mystery people don't talk about via with sex, but in Africa, the chemical formulation of the compound is totally different. So that's the difference here.
So when it like came into America, would you say it had like the same kind of effect? Were people reacting the same way like with COVID, or was it a completely different situation?
I think it was a completely different situation because the United States and the people were not on board because it was primarily affecting homosexual population. That's why the homosexual population organize and form what is called ACT UP, where they would go into government buildings and with government officials and act up like they would go in and like a meeting and just everybody lay down on the ground. Like, we're not getting up till y'all give us some money.
Yeah.
So ACT UP was instrumental in making the government pay attention and give money to helping AIDS patients. The movie play Rent. I love that. I love that play. I love the
Yeah.
music.
Very good movie.
Man, it
Very
really
good story
showed.
from the guy that wrote it. Very good story
Yeah,
from the guy that wrote it.
Yeah, he died. He had warfarin symptoms. He had a medical condition, and he died right before it was became on Broadway. Anyway, he really showed the impact of AIDS on the population. I mean, I love that. I love the music, because it brought back so many memories of being in the fight, to in DC to deal with AIDS. I mean, I put on my first it was 1990, 1981, a first seminar. I tried to get the Muslim community to help me, help me, support me. They did not. They would not. I mean, the head imam, we met at a grocery store in Tacoma Park. He's shopping, and I'm trying to convince him that you need to come and help me with this program. He was like, "No, it's about the homosexuals." Then you two later, they were like, "Hey, we're the ones that organize." And then, no, brother, you did not. I was there, and I asked you to help me, and you did not.
Yeah.
So I mean, they then tried to take over in Washington D.C. Washington D.C. We were the first ones on. No, you weren't. I mean, I was there. You weren't. Okay.
I was there, but you wasn't. I tried to get you there, but you wasn't having it.
Yeah, I mean, they won't say that to my face. I'll say it to their face. No, I remember being in the drugstore in Tacoma. I mean, the food store in Tacoma Park, and I was asking you, "Could you help me, brother?" And you said, "No, you cannot," because you was there. It was they want to be associated. The fact that they had a homosexual component, people in the United States, but people in Africa were not homosexuals, and we needed to deal with the fact that AIDS was here, and there were people that had the ability to have people that were positive become negative. See, that was the narrative in the United States, is that once you got it, you get negative, you can never be positive. And that's BS. Okay. And you can also look at what went on in Cuba. But people don't want to talk about that. They want to say, "Ooh, we have to treat this." No, you could cure it if you had paid attention in the beginning to the work of Dr. David Koich, but they could not, because they couldn't make no money. This was the deal. It was about money.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
And that's why people are dying.
Because I mean, it's still, that truth is going on to this day. Is we have the cure, we have it ready to take care of, but they want us to pay for
it. They want you to pay for it. They want you to pay for it. That's the whole point. It's very expensive. These drugs are very, very expensive. And they couldn't make any money with what Dr. Koich was doing. They only can make money from a pharmaceutical company. And that's what happened with the AIDS epidemic. I was right there on the forefront, so I do know what happened.
So yeah,
I know.
Yeah, like you said, you're in DC, you're seeing it all unfold. You're watching it all happen.
Yeah, I knew what happened. But
I'm just thinking, like, how incredible your story is, though. To start, you went from Cleveland, then Chicago, and then you end up in DC.
No, I went to DC first, and then Chicago.
Oh, okay. So you were at DC, then Chicago, then back.
Yes, I spent like 28 years in DC. Then I went to Chicago, and then I came back home to Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah.
What brought you back to Cleveland?
What? How long? What?
So what brought you back to Cleveland?
I had, like I said, the fundamental disagreement with the person I was with to Chicago.
Okay.
And I mean, Jared. I mean, Jared is a very famous name in Chicago. Valerie Jared. That was her. The guy. My girlfriend was married to Bobby Jared, which was Valerie Jared's first husband. And she don't really talk about him. And Laura Jared is her daughter, which is on CNN. She don't ever talk about her daddy either. But her daddy loved her, okay? And he loved her very much. But it was not a good relationship, because of Jared's. I mean, Vernon Jared is very, important. He is the one that created the academic program for the NAACP Scholar Program. I mean, they were very important. And Valerie Jared thought that Bobby Jared was going to be like, famous doctor and, moving in certain circles. He wanted to be a doctor, more a community doctor. Those two weren't meeting. So, I mean, she broke up the relationship in terms of Valerie Jarrett and took the daughter. And he didn't see the daughter for a long. That's Laura Jarrett. That's on CNN. He didn't see the daughter for a long time, and then he got an incurable disease and he died. And so much for Valerie Jarrett. I read an article she did in New York Magazine. She barely mentioned Bobby. I said, "Look at you, girl. What are you doing?" And anyway,
he's like, I do not want to include him.
Yeah, so people do what they want to do. But I was there, so she can't tell me something that didn't happen. Anyway.
All right, as we begin to wrap this thing up, I just want to say it is awesome just to have you on and hear your incredible story, especially just your roots, where you came from.
Yeah.
And how much
I'm doing our family story now in terms of our roots.
Like, wow.
And I went back and looked at some notes yesterday, a couple of days ago, and I found out that my great grandmother's father was a mulatto. And I looked through the census papers, and he was. But my grandfather says in his notes that his mother was white, not black. So it wasn't a situation of a black woman and a white man. The situation with a white woman or the black man. That story has got to be told, because I could not figure, because that means about 1830, that's when this was happening. I'm like, what?
And you said you're working on writing this book?
Yeah, I'm working on so many things. The first thing I'm gonna put out is we saw the movie The Woman King. I had written a whole paper on Dahomey Kingdom of Dahomey about 18 years ago. So that's about 20 pages, and what currently I'm going to expand that.
All right.
Because it talks about not only the kingdom and the women warriors, but the concept of something called legitimate trade. And the U.S., not the U.S., Great Britain, at the time that they wanted to do this, wanted to abolish slavery. People think it was an altruistic, Great Britain is abolish it. No, that's not what we're doing. It's the beginning of the what do you call that? Industrial Revolution. They needed palm oil from him. Remember the discussion, if we saw the movie, discussion between the warrior and the king. Should we do slavery, or should we cultivate palm oil? That was the discussion. That was a legitimate discussion. That was real, because of a discussion between Great Britain trying to make people produce oil to fund their Industrial Revolution, which was the beginnings of capitalist system, as opposed to being slavery. So it's a very complicated story. So anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. The other things I want to work on too, but that's the priority right now.
When should we expect to see this out and be published?
Well, I was looking at some ebook information on Amazon, not Amazon, BookBaby. I want to expand it. It's about 28 pages now. I want to expand it to maybe 100 pages.
Okay. All right.
So that's what I'm focusing on. Maybe by February I can have something done, and be able to look, start editing and just put it out.
All right. So within, you say probably about a year's time, you could see it out there?
Oh, maybe 6 months.
Oh, you're not playing around.
I mean, I have the nucleus of it. I just need to expand it.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, I have the nucleus of it.
All right. Second question: if somebody wants to get a hold of you or contact you, how can they reach out to you?
Well, you can use my email. I have three asking you. It's my name, DeVaughn.Karen@gmail.com, DeVaughn, or return to the source, which is under which it's going to be published. Return to the source at gmail.com. And then I have my human resources aspect, which is called First SHR, which is talking about people that in situations at their job, they making moves. And my position is that the first thing you need to do is ask HR before you make a move. Okay, that's what your first thing that you do. And so that hence it's first shr@gmail.com.
All right.
So I have 3. Okay.
All right. And then, okay, the final question. Say somebody's following your footsteps, going into the same career path. What kind of advice would you give them?
Read all the time, everything you can get your hands on. This is what started my journey. When I learned to read, I was 5 years old. I remember being on a bus, and at that time they using phonics, and I looked at my mother, Mommy, I could read. I was 5. I've read everything that I can get my hands on all the time. It's only then, after years of reading and putting information that I can spit out this knowledge. But read.
Knowledge is power.
That's right.
All right. I just want to say thank you for coming on today. It's truly been an honor to hear your story.
No problem. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, no problem. Anybody that's watching or listening, this is also, I'd like to say, this is a platform for everyone, because I do believe everybody has a story, and I believe without doubt, whoever's listening or watching, that you have a story as well. And if you would be interested in coming on here, feel free to reach out and message me. This is Chris. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Peace out.